Welcome back to the Rounding Third podcast. Glad to see Sean's back. Sean, how you doing?
Good, boys. Good. How you doing?
All right, great. Before we get started, just want you to like our page, share our page, subscribe on YouTube. And we're back to like a normal week this week. We had two great guests and two great interviews last week with Jim Rowe last Monday, and then a single A pitcher from the Brooklyn Cyclones, David Griffin.
Nice hat.
Both, yeah, right? I had to, man. It was awesome. But both shows were really great. So if you haven't seen them, do yourself a favor and go back and watch those. They were great. Good insight from David on the new league rules in the Atlantic League, and then the insight that Jim gave us about the Red Sox behind the scenes was just, I mean, like I said that day, I was geeking out the entire time. Like, just loved to listen to him talk. So do yourself a favor and go back and watch those episodes.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We could have talked baseball with those guys for hours.
Yeah, you guys did a good job. I was sad to miss it, but you guys did a nice job. Those were very good.
Nice.
Awesome.
All right, so leading off tonight, we're going to have Harrison, who's going to take the lead on this one.
Awesome. So the headlines lately have been talking a lot about the very high likelihood MLB will have its first work stoppage in a long time. So the collective bargaining agreement technically ends on either the 1st or 2nd of December, and then once that ends, in theory, MLB has the right to lock out, which means that players are unable to enter facilities. The league effectively shuts down operations until a new CBA is agreed upon. So you go into free agency, and of course, right now is a time when all this stuff is cranking up. Like, winter meetings are happening, GMs are talking, people are starting to plan out next year, and you have no idea what rules you're going to be playing by going into next year. So MLB's put together a lot of proposals about having more of they've talked about a salary floor that teams can't go below, which would be $100 million. No team can spend less than $100 million on payroll. They've also talked about a very hard cap of about $180 million. And then at payroll thresholds of $210 million, you actually begin to lose draft picks. So it's going to look more like the NFL in the sense of it's not a luxury tax; it's a hard cap, and if you exceed it, there's pretty significant penalties. So there's all kinds of proposals being kind of bantered back and forth, and potentially that could be in this CBA. But ultimately, as a GM, you're going into the biggest part of the hot stove season and free agency signing period, and you don't know what the rules are going to look like for next year.
Does the salary cap help have some variety in playoff teams? Because let's face it, all the big market teams are the same 10 teams that make the playoff year after year after year. Does the salary cap help bring the Texas Rangers, the Seattle Mariners, the low market teams? Does that help them get to the playoffs, a salary cap?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, it's supposed to, right? I mean, that's what all the the sports that have it. That's the main principle behind it is like more parity around the league. So yeah, Harrison, I was going to ask, are they talking a floor and a ceiling? So like 100 million can't spend less, and then also a cap of like 180, 190, whatever.
Yeah. So one of the biggest complaints out of the big market teams is this whole revenue sharing formula. And you've got these teams like the Pirates that perpetually spend like $12 and roll out a terrible team. And take the first pick and continue that cycle every single year. And a lot of the large market teams are saying, this is ridiculous. We're revenue sharing with these guys. They're not even spending the money we give them. They're rolling out a garbage team,
for the record,
and it's not good for the game. So yeah, they're talking about doing a floor and a ceiling. So the floor would be 100 million, no payroll less than 100 million. So that affects, I want to say it was like 12 teams potentially could be under that. And, I mean, the Rays are counted in that, but, they've done all right because they've managed it well. But you've got about a dozen teams that are impacted by that. Then on the flip side, at 180, if you start to phase in from a luxury tax to a hard cap at 210, you got 5 teams that hit that 210 already, including the Dodgers, who were at 280. They'd be looking at potentially losing multiple draft picks and not only that, on top of paying a massive luxury tax bill. So
they'll gut their team. The owners they'll just gut that team.
Yeah,
they won't even. They'll take that and cut it in half.
the thing with the floor though, like can't like say the Pirates, you got Brian Reynolds, right? He's your stud in Pittsburgh, right? You just take him and you're like, all right, well, we're at 96 million. We're just going to pay him an extra 4, just that one player to get over that threshold and just live at the bottom.
Right.
Like, does the floor do anything though? Like,
it does though, because it gets the team like the Pirates to that 96 million. Like it's not like they're giving one player to get them from 65 million to 100. Like if they're close enough to that 100 million where one extension to a player is going to get you there, then I think it does its job, because it gets a team like the Pirates or a team like the Rays or a team like the Diamondbacks, and it gets them closer to where they're like competitive on a day in day out basis.
yeah,
Like my concern is really going to be, and I haven't looked into like the ownership, but like you're going to have teams that are that have owners now that's like, I don't want to spend 100 million a year on payroll. Like we're going to get into like big ownership changes.
right.
Teams just like, I'm just trying to sell this team now. Like I don't want to spend all the money.
Right.
You know, that's going to be an interesting fallout of that too. But again, if we're talking about a lockout, like lockouts are owners locking the players out. It's not a player strike. It's an owner lockout.
Correct.
So if that's the case, owners have to know this going in, right? So maybe it wouldn't be as much of a shakeup on the ownership, but.
No, it's what's interesting is there's a strong belief this will be the first true work stoppage since what, 94?
Yeah, it's the longest of any of the professional sports. We're the longest without a stoppage. NBA's locked out, NFL's locked out,
That's
hockey's locked out.
Everybody has, but there's a fear that this will be the first time MLB actually, strike versus actual stoppage driven by the league.
It was right
because 94 was a strike,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
And this would actually be MLB, the owners and the front and the office locking the players out. But they believe this will be the first time that MLB will actually go to a true work stoppage, because the league is really trying to deal with competitive balancing and trying to bring some parity back, because you have consistently the same, 10, 12 teams that are basically always in the running, and then a couple others each year that pop up on you that you don't necessarily see coming. But it's not like the NFL where any given Sunday, you can, the Buccaneers lost this weekend. One of the best teams in football lost badly to Washington, who's in free fall, because in the NFL you have that parity where you can have a bad game and lose to a worse team. Where in MLB you consistently have the powerhouses.
Baseball's always tough though. Baseball's 162 games.
Right.
Like over the course of a baseball season, like the good teams are going to will out. Like that's just how it's going to work. Like you can have. The Pittsburgh Pirates could beat the Dodgers in a game. It's baseball's tough in that way, which is why even more like you need that league parity. Like you need it because if you don't, if it's the same 10 or 12 teams every year with the highest payroll, there's no way other teams are going to be able to consistently compete. Maybe, like you said, a year here or there, but
imagine baseball.
It's almost most important in baseball.
Right.
Imagine baseball once a week, 17 weeks, boom.
It's 10 baseball games to a football game in terms of portion of the season.
Absolutely, definitely. Like Sean's,
which
correct,
is why
100%. Like
funny
good teams are going to win that.
You got football teams that lose like 3 games in a row and the fans go nuts. And it's like, well, think about a baseball team losing 28 out of 30 games. Like that'd be a disaster.
Right.
Like you wonder why like three losses in a row is huge in the NFL or, with baseball. It's just so many games.
So what makes this whole thing interesting is there's a lot of GMs who are, they're saying business as usual, but the feeling is that this is actually going to potentially stall the free agent signing period, because if you're a team like the Dodgers and you're at that number and you're looking at the rules changing on luxury tax, et cetera, you've got to think about how you're going to manage that roster to potentially have to get down a little bit, or just say, forget it, we're going to take the penalty. Granted, there'll be some kind of a phasing in of these new rules. It's not like instant. It's going to take a little bit of time to phase them in, but at the same time, a lot of the rumors are the GMs are nervous to make long-term commitments to a guy like Correa at 10 years, 300 million, when they don't know what. Maybe in the first year or two they can get away with that, but in years 3, 4, and 5, are they going to have the ability to have that payroll, kind of on their books, or are they going to be coming back to a guy like that to try to renegotiate, or potentially being in a new kind of salary cap jail, where they made a decision a couple of years ago, the rules have changed, and now they're stuck with it. So the belief is these big free agents may sit for a while longer, or you're going to have these smaller teams that don't have fear of the salary cap come in and try to make big offers to them to grab them now, knowing that the
Well, I was
big
going to
teams are
say, I
going to
mean,
stand still and watch.
interesting. I mean, he's not necessarily like, Carlos Correa, but I find the Tigers going out and, signing Eddie.
Yep.
I mean, it's, what was that, 15 or 16 mil a year was what it came out to? Like
Yep.
7 years?
Yeah, 5 years, 77.
Five,
But
that's
this
what it
is-
is, 577.
This is
I
gotta
mean,
be.
again, he's not like a. Sorry,
Go ahead. This is going to be
No, I
the
was gonna
worst
say, he's not
year
like
for a
premier.
lockout.
He's not Carlos Correa, but no, I just found it interesting. A team like the Tigers. I don't know
Yep.
if they were one of those teams that were under the 100, but I bet you if they weren't, they were pretty damn close. So for them to say, we don't care if they do it, if they don't do it, like it's not going to really impact us in a negative way. Anyways, it gives them kind of that extra, not extra time, but they don't have to worry about that. They can jump right in and make a signing like that. And that's going to be huge. I think the Tigers are going to be a team in the next 3 years that, you're just pitching wise, you're going to look at them and go, it's a pretty good rotation. They got they got some young studs on that team.
And that's a good ballpark to be a pitcher in.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But this is going to be the worst year to potentially have a lockout with the amount of big name free agents for baseball. Like, this is a huge off season for the MLB, and for them to throw a work stoppage in here at this time, it would be a killer. Baseball's finally starting to trend back up. People are starting to get into baseball more. Like, the casual fan is starting to get into it more. And an off season as crazy as this one's going to be, to throw a lockout in the middle of that is going to be detrimental, I think, to baseball.
Yeah, it's a good point.
But,
it's a good point.
It is, and you really do have maybe one of your best free agent classes and deepest free agent classes in a long time that are caught in this murkiness of, are we going to still be working in 2 weeks, or are they going to shut everything down, and are we going to just sit on the sidelines while they work it all out? And at the same time, you've got the Tigers, which are a great example of one of these under the radar teams with not a lot of payroll on the books. They're going to make moves anyways because they've got capital, and they're not afraid of any sort of a salary cap potential rule changing to impact them because they're so far below it. So the question becomes, in a normal year, would Erod go to the Tigers, or did he realize that might be the best offer he gets because of the situation they're in?
Could be that. Didn't he decline that? It was the qualifying offer for the Sox wasn't a long-term deal. I get that, but it was even a little bit more money than what he got. So I'm wondering that. So maybe he's thinking, well, he could probably get 17 or 18 on the market, but are other teams out there going to give him 5 or 6 years?
Right.
For the Tigers to give him that 5 years. I mean, he's what, 27 now, 28? Is that what he is?
Yeah.
Or even younger. Right?
No, I'm pretty sure he's 20.
Eddie is.
But the thing is like with
28.
Correa is not gonna sign until all these other shortstops sign. Like, because Correa wants top dollar, so he's gonna wait for Story's contract, Seager's contract to get signed, and then he's gonna come back and throw, demand the $35 million or whatever it's gonna take a year to sign him.
But again, this could be a dangerous situation where he could overplay his hand, because the two teams that can give you the money the two teams that are going to give you the money that potentially the money that you want to get are going to be two teams that are not winning teams, at least not now. Like, you're going to be, we have a question here, who's going to be the cornerstone of your team. Like, that might be the situation that he finds himself in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ben says, do you feel like these absurd long-term deals like Machado deal will go by the wayside with proposed salary cap structure? I think no. Because think about, like, you sign somebody long-term, you might be able to renegotiate their contract down the road, right? If you give a guy $10 million for, 10 years, 15 years, and you need to get under the cap or just over the cap, you can restructure his deal maybe later down the road. So, I don't know if the long-term deals will go away or not.
I actually feel the opposite. I feel like it will go away, because you look at contracts like, Pujols is a great example. The last 3 years of that deal were abysmal for the Angels. And if you have an actual true cap in place, you can't carry 15 or 20 million bucks in dead weight for a guy's, basically sunset years, I think you'll either see, if it's a long-term deal, you'll see the salary escalate and then begin to fade at the end, or you'll see them shorten up terms to give better value during what would be better years, versus these massive contracts where you're paying guys, 25, 30 million in their final couple of years and you're getting nothing for it.
Well, also depends on obviously the age of the free agent as well. I mean,
sure.
that's how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, again, and you'll see, it depends on, the way that the salary cap, they go with that route. Like, if it works if the rules of the salary cap are the same and structured the same way that the NFL does, like the NFL signing bonus does not count against salary cap. So you could just convert, if I have a $12 million salary, I could convert 10 million out of that 12 to a signing bonus, and then only 2 million is now against the cap because 10 million is a signing bonus. So there's, you see that in the NFL every year for multiple players on every team. Like Patriots do it like crazy.
The issue
if they can do that. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the issue to that point though is in MLB where you've got guaranteed contracts. These teams are trapped. If MLB is really going to make this an effective play, they need to go to exactly your point, Sean, which is more of like that NFL structure where maybe some of it's guaranteed, but you need to give teams flexibility where if a guy's in year 5 of a 10-year deal and playing like garbage, you can renegotiate or cut him. And try to go a different route. I know in baseball you can waive guys, but you still have guarantees tied to that, and you got makeups on when they get picked up, and there's you're not entirely whole. But to your point, Sean, if they go to that NFL structure where it's not all guaranteed, which the players' union will absolutely have a cow over, that ultimately fixes the issue of these long-term contracts because you won't be stuck with this long-term deal that's no good at the back end.
Yeah, I mean, the owners and the Players Association are in a tough spot because I'm with you 100%. The union, there's no way they're going to sign off on having fully guaranteed contracts now to signing something to say, oh, yeah, we won't guarantee our money. I mean, it's like you have to give them so many stipulations in order for them to even think about that. So I don't know what they're going to do. Like, if they implement this floor ceiling type of salary cap, like I'm interested to see how it all works out and like kind of what the stipulations are, because being a fully guaranteed league, it's there really is not much wiggle room.
Yep. Yeah, agreed.
And do you think having it at 210 is high enough, or do you think it's too low? Like,
I think starting luxury tax at 180 and then having like real penalties at 210 is probably a good idea, because otherwise you end up with this runaway train of the top 5 teams being over. I think the top 5 teams, the lowest one was at like 207. And if you've got teams operating a floor of 100, that's better than when they were at like 60. But you still have such a massive spread between the top and the bottom that you do fix the problem, sort of. But if you don't put some kind of a ceiling on it, they're just going to push it further north because they can.
Yeah.
I mean, they would probably scale it, though. Like, if they put something in, they would say, okay, starting this year, the ceiling would be, I don't know, 230, and then next year it's 210, and then the year after that it's 205, or like whatever. Like, there's no way they would just be able to put a hard one in.
No,
like, because
there's a
like
phase
you said,
in.
a team like the Dodgers, the team like the Dodgers would have to cut half their roster.
Yeah. So here's a good question for you. So yeah. So here's a question for you. Carlos Correa is 27 years old. He wants a 10-year deal. What do you think his 35, 36, 37-year seasons are going to look like? He's going to be, I mean, is he $30 million a year then? Is he really worth it?
He'll move to third base or he'll DH because he's too slow to play shortstop. He's too big, blah, blah, blah. His numbers will decline a little bit. I mean, he won't be worth the $35 million a year he's going to get in the first 4 or 5 years.
Right.
But you're right. So, I mean, maybe you front load his contract and then taper it off towards the end. So he still gets the same amount of money, but you're paying him more up front. But then again, if you have the cap, you could run into trouble.
Yeah. So say your hard cap is at 210 when you start losing draft picks. Do you want to commit basically 20% of your salary, 25% of your total salary to Carlos Correa? I don't.
You have 25 men on your roster. Like,
right.
No.
It's really going to force teams to make, I think, harder decisions about how they build their rosters and how much they commit to single players. And that's ultimately why the Red Sox traded Mookie Betts. They were not prepared to give a single player 30 to 35 million bucks a year. They just weren't going to do it because it takes away all your flexibility. And that's, I think you're going to see the top end of the market, I think, will start to come down. Or they'll continue to give them these super long contracts to say basically, hey, look, we're going to underpay you in the first 3 years, but we're going to overpay you at the back end and call it even to try to spread the cost out. But it's going to get, these GMs are going to have to do a little bit of maneuvering they haven't had to do in the past. Yeah. I mean, with the Dodgers, you got a guy named Andrew Friedman who is the ultimate, like the guy could squeeze blood out of a penny when he's in Tampa. He goes to Los Angeles, starts writing he gets the biggest checkbook on the planet, and all of a sudden he's now like the smartest GM out there. When really he's built a team that's won one World Series in years with a payroll of almost $300 million a year. I mean, is that really an accomplishment?
Yeah, no, I think going back to the original question, like, are we going to see some parity? I think probably. I mean, not probably, definitely, but I think probably sooner rather than later if this gets implemented, because I think you are going to see guys like the Correas, I'm thinking big name guys, right? Correa, Tatis, Mike Trout, like those guys, like more spread out around the league. I know Mike Trout's in LA Angels right now, so that's not a great example. But you're going to see those big name guys spread out amongst 20 teams rather than, the Yankees signing 2 out of the 5 every offseason. It's just not going to happen, and we're going to see these, the Yankees, if this goes in, if this is a thing, I think we're talking like it's going to happen. I mean, the middle of that Yankees orders is they've played their last game together. They're going to be able to pay all those guys.
No.
Same with the Dodgers team. That Dodgers team as constituted today on November 15th is no longer.
But like you said, they're going to give them a couple of years to do it. They're not just going to be like, hey, you need to get underneath this 210 this year.
Sure, they will, but they're not going to give them a free year. They're not going to say like, 2021, 2022 is a free. Like, that's not a free year. It won't be the hard cap, but they're going to have to make decisions, and those decisions are going to have to be made this offseason.
Yeah. Right. So if you're a GM right now looking at planning your team and you're thinking about Carlos Correa, 10 years, $300 million, but that salary cap or the payroll structure in the league is definitely going to be impacted in some way. That's a big commitment to make to a guy when you don't yet know the rules down the road. So this should make for a really interesting free agent period. It's going to be probably slow to develop.
Yes, and not only that, is also the international signing day is going to get pushed off too. Because you got guys coming from Cuba and Dominican and all this stuff that it's going to push those guys off too. Yeah, and like I said, I think it's detrimental to baseball right now. With if they go on a stoppage right now with this free agent class, it's not going to be good. But
and you can't expect people to tell the future, no doubt. But I feel like we've said it a few times in our short episodes, but shame on baseball for not seeing this coming. Like, you don't need to know, like, you don't need to see the future, but like, if you're running the league and you're in that front office and you're in the league office in New York, like, the guys that are coming up on free agency years in advance. Like, this isn't something that sneaks up on you. Right. You know who they are. You know when they're up. You know when they're eligible to hit the market. You know when they have team control. Like, all these things are like, and like, to have it get to this point and then like have it come screeching to a halt is disappointing. But again, I mean, we talk about, I mean, we were joking around in our text messages, but like the damn league, I mean, we're talking about grow the game. We want, the young generation, like they're saying that baseball's falling off. They release like the league awards in some like press release during Sunday Night Football. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. You want the younger generation to follow you. Like, they don't read the newspaper anymore. Like, that's not a thing. That's not how they get their news. Right. So it's just like releasing it. It frustrates me. Like it's like 100%. You can say all the things you want, but your actions are just telling me that you don't really give a shit about the future of this game.
Yep. Yeah. Another good question here from Ben along those lines. I think ideally the league would love to see deals get more structured around incentives. I think the issue we've got is the Players Association is going to fight that one.
Guaranteed.
If you want a salary cap, we're not losing the guaranteed contracts. You guys got to figure it out. So there's going to
Right.
be give and take, but I think long term the league is going to continue to try to go down this path of how do you give teams more flexibility. So if they have a bad contract, they have a way out
Right.
for sure.
I mean, I love Ben's idea though. Imagine incentive laden deals. Imagine
know.
a guy like, I don't know, like Devers, and he's got a little incentive for 2022 that says if he hits 320 for the year, he gets like an extra $500,000 or something. And he's up there like beginning September, just like battling every at bat. Like, give me all of that.
No.
Like, that'd be awesome. A guy that's 20 games up in the division's already locked up, but this guy needs to get to his incentive because it's an extra, $250,000, 200,000,
Yep.
or like whatever
Right.
an incentive. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. I mean, there's nothing worse than baseball games where both teams know that the game doesn't matter, and it's still baseball, but like those games don't have any. You can tell the players don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
I'd
mean,
love.
Jim
Go
made a
ahead.
good point. Jim made a good point with us last week, though. Like, he's like, that's the time to recover for those guys to recover. When they have the division locked up, they have the bigger game in mind. They have the World Series in mind, so they got to get rest. Like, I agree. Like, the incentives would be great. Like, give that guy another $500,000. I mean, he's already got 20. You might as well just give him another $500K. Who cares? But like, Jim's got to shut him down because they need to rest up and be the better 90% for the playoffs instead of running at 75% the whole time. I mean, I can see both sides of it. I get it.
Yeah,
but you're
there's
right.
definitely a balancing act.
Right. September baseball can be brutal, and the Red Sox in September usually don't get along. But
and I think it goes back to if you do end up creating some parity in baseball, you're going to have a lot more meaningful games in September than you've ever had before. You won't have teams with 30 game leads that are shutting it down because
theoretically.
Right. You should have tighter races and more competitive, and you won't come up to the Pirate series, I love to pick on them, and just lay down knowing that it won't matter. You can probably still take 2 out of 3 with your AAA roster, and I think the game definitely changes. And then you get into more like the NBA with this whole workload management and scheduled days off like teams used to do.
Yeah.
Where you
But I'll tell you though, Nick, just to play devil's advocate on the, shutting guys down. I think that's where, and I totally understand it and I agree with it. And if you're, Jim's position, like your job is to the health and safety and performance of my players. That's his number one goal for him is that. But just to play devil's advocate as a fan, and as somebody that watches many baseball games as I can every year, like that's the job of the GM and the front office people to build a roster and bring up the guys and sign guys that give you that roster flexibility where you don't have to shut guys down because you have enough utility players or you have enough guys that you can bring up when the rosters expand, and you have that flexibility where the game doesn't suffer and you don't have to sit a guy because he's running at 70%. Like, the ability to build a roster, it's hard and it's difficult, but that's why those guys get paid tens of millions of dollars too as GMs.
I agree 100%. I'm with you.
Yeah. So I know we got to move on to the next topic, but I do think this is an interesting time for baseball, but it could be a really exciting time for baseball because we may see some moves finally get made to begin to put some competitive balance into a game that quite honestly lost it a long time ago.
We've needed it.
And we'll get fans back because more games are going to matter than they have in the past.
Yeah. So, all right.
Yeah,
so
we'll see. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I mean, no. I was just going to wrap that up and just say, I'm excited to see how it plays out. I am holding my breath here. I hope it doesn't screw up the game, but I do think a change needs to be made. So I'm excited to see how they do.
I agree. All right, moving on to the 5th inning showdown. We are going to debate which player would you build a team around. So who's that one cornerstone piece that you would have on your team and you would build your franchise around? Harrison, go.
All right, this was a bit of a struggle, but at the end of it, I went with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I don't necessarily love to give a first baseman the nod as the key player, but I think you look at this guy, he hits like a 10-year vet, very patient, manages to strike zone well, power, average, on base, the whole shooting match. But I think more than anything, here's a guy who's thrived in arguably the worst possible circumstances. So he plays for the Toronto Blue Jays, and yet the 2020 season they played everywhere, the 21 season they played everywhere, and they finally got home. This team has lived out of suitcases. He's really been a very vocal leader in his early 20s with a team that really wasn't supposed to compete yet. And they really, I think, surprised some people this year with where they came from. And I think he's been a massively stabilizing force and really a dominant force for a team that has had a lousy situation the last couple of years with not being able to play home games and being stuck at minor league ballparks and wherever somebody would accept him. So I think given everything he's done in these circumstances, I would go with Vlad.
I mean, hard to argue with that. I mean, the
Right.
guy
Yeah,
got
for
310,
sure.
Silver
For
Slugger, Hank Aaron Award.
He's a freak.
Did he get, no, Ohtani got Hank Aaron, but still, I mean, yeah, he's an absolute offensive specimen and part of the legacy team. I mean, they have some young players there, and I mean, that's definitely that's a solid pick for sure.
I mean, you pick a guy that's a finalist for the MVP.
Pretty good, yeah.
Not
Yeah,
bad.
it's all right.
Not
Yeah,
bad.
and
Not bad.
a guy arguably could have potentially been in the running last year too. I mean,
Right.
it's
Yeah, true. Sure.
still young.
All right, Sean, your guy.
My guy, Juan Soto. Juan Soto, this guy's 20 years old. And again, similar to the things that Harrison said about Vlad, but I mean, the approaches this guy has to play at 20 years old my jaw drops. It's unbelievable.
Sick, man.
The patience, the ability to see the zone, know the zone, understand the zone, and then be able, he gets up and we're talking 18, 19 years old when he was led that team to the World Series in DC. We're talking big at bats, big moments against like some pretty good, like seasoned postseason pitchers. Like we're not talking like he's not going up a bunch against the 19, 20-year-olds either. These guys have been there, done that when it comes to the postseason. And he's putting up great at bats, big time hits, power bat. Like,
Yeah.
He is we talk about cornerstone of a friend. I mean, he's a cornerstone player for a franchise. I mean, I just wrote a couple things down real quick on him, right? This guy for his career, 301 batting, 313 last year in 2021, 301 in his career. He's too shy of 100 home runs for his career. He's getting 98. He's getting 98 home runs.
He's 20.
Yeah. I mean, and I know we're in a day and age where
Jesus.
it's strikeouts or home runs. Like I get that. This guy's got 98 home runs. He can't even legally buy a beer yet. He's getting 98 home runs. He's got 312 RBIs. And the big one here for me is 432. Where are we looking at? Sorry, guys. On base, 432. So, I mean, we're talking about a guy that can.
He's a freak.
We're talking about a guy that can hit with power, but he knows the zone. I mean, he's not afraid to get up there and just take a walk. Like, so to me, like, that's a crazy thing, and he'll get better offensively. But I don't know what his defensive ceiling is, to be quite honest, and I don't really care.
No, he's a corner outfielder. He'll be fine.
Probably, exactly. Like, he'll probably be one of those guys that, I don't think he's going to go out there and win a bunch of Gold Gloves, but he'll be serviceable enough.
If Joey Gallo can win a Gold Glove, maybe he's got a shot, right, Nick?
Jesus, dude, how brutal was that, huh?
Not one, but two.
Right, not one, but two.
Unbelievable.
So mine is Tatis Jr. Yeah. I mean, the kid's got so much swag. He's 22. He's young too. In 3 years, he's hit 292. He's got 81 home runs as a shortstop. He's drove in 200. He has 52 stolen bases. And we also have to remember that these guys only played 60 games last year.
I know.
And these numbers are crazy. And these would be great for 3 full seasons, let alone a season where they
2.5
played. Right. And I mean, so I kind of cheated. I picked 2. My dark horse is Luis Robert for the White Sox. I know Chicago. He was hurt. Yeah. Yep. I know he was hurt this year, but they have really said this guy is going to be the next Mike Trout. And he has the tools to do it. It's just whether he can stay healthy or not. He's a little bit older, and when I say older, he's 24. But he's hit 294. He's got 24 home runs and 74 RBIs. But he's only had 523 at-bats. because of the shortened season, and he was hurt this year. So to put up 24 home runs and 75 RBIs and 500 at bats, and defensively he's nasty and he's got a cannon. So I mean, my dark horse would be
kid's got wheels too.
Yeah, and he's crazy
He's got
fast.
Wheels.
So
Wheels.
I mean, dark horse. Not a lot of people know about him, and I don't really know because I don't know if he can stay healthy. But the Tatis is my number one.
He might not be the guy that you pick right now to build your team around, but he's that guy that you're like, hey, check with me in 2023, and I might change my mind. Like, just show me it for 2 years or something like that. But he's a stud.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so we're gonna move on to our next segment, the 7th inning stretch. And for the next, I don't know, math is hard. 6 weeks. Thank you. Math is hard. The next 6 weeks, we're going to rank our MLB franchises from 30 all the way to 1. However, we were talking a little bit before we got on live, and Harrison and I have completely different lists because what we measured it on is completely different. So, and Sean, I'm sure you measured yours differently as well. So I'll just give a rundown of how I chose to rank the teams. So I chose to rank them on all-time wins, primary Hall of Famers. And by primary Hall of Famers, I mean Hall of Famers that went into the Hall with the team on their cap. World Series titles and playoff appearances. That's how I ranked every organization. So Harrison, how did you choose to rank yours?
Pretty solid metrics to rank an organization on. So I ranked them more from a value perspective. So I looked at them in terms of if I wanted to own an organization, which ones would I want to own? So I looked at, the market they're in, the farm system they've got, the success they've had, and then also, kind of some tradition and prestige with the various organizations. So I took more of a valuation perspective as to what I think they are worth. And then Nick took more of a true baseball stats and metrics approach. So it'll be interesting to see how ours vary. And then, of course, you got Sean, who probably has a third way. And I'll be curious how much they line up or don't line up.
Yeah, no, I'd be honest with you guys. I didn't go too much into the history, if you will, of the organizations and the markets that they're in. Like, I honestly am looking at the 30 teams in the league. And, Nick, I did a little bit of like the prestige, if you will, but I didn't. For instance, like I don't have the Yankees as number one because they have the most World Series. Like I didn't just put them at the top. Like, yeah, they have the most titles, but like, both like a lot of those are happening like all white baseball. Like how much of that can you really put in? Like it's the same organization. Like I guess I took a much more just recent. Like look at the teams how they're constituted now. Like who are the owners of the teams now? Which teams are, going out to spend money, which teams are trying to get better, or which teams are literally there to just like milk the tit of everybody else that's making money, and then they just share a little bit themselves. Like the Pirates, I'll be honest, they're my 30th team. Like I have no use for the Pirates. Yeah. If the Pittsburgh Pirates just woke up tomorrow and said, hey, there's going to be 29 teams in baseball, I wouldn't lose it.
Nope.
Like I have no respect for the Pittsburgh.
We've talked about them before, and they were actually in a great place when they had Marte and McCutchen, and they were a couple of wins away from a World Series, and then they're just like, we're good.
Do you remember when baseball went to the one game wild card? They made back-to-back. They had Garrett Cole on the mound. They made back-to-back one-game wild cards for a chance to go to the division series. It's like they were in a spot with young players. Like, oh, do I finally get to see the? Nope, never. I'll never see it. We'll never see it.
So
not until they get a new ownership group.
Right.
No, it's bad.
So my 30th team, because my metrics are way different than yours, which is fine, is actually the Seattle Mariners. So all-time wins, they have only 3,221 wins as a franchise. They only have the 2 Hall of Famers. Who are the 2 Hall of Famers?
Griffey and Edgar, right?
Yep, Griffey and Edgar. Those are the only 2 to come out of the Mariners organization. They have 0 World Series appearances, so obviously they don't have any wins. And they've only been to the playoffs 4 times in franchise history.
It's bad.
So
that's it. They've only been 4 times.
That's it. 4 times. So with my metrics, they're at the bottom. Like, sorry. Like, I'm glad they almost got there this year, but they got some work to do. So, yeah, that's my 30th.
Nice. So
I
30
would
for
have
me is
lost
the
that.
Pirates.
I'm sorry. I'm still blown away. They've only been there 4 times.
Yeah. I was thinking the
Dude,
same
they
thing.
had a year where they won like 107
Yeah.
games or whatever the fuck.
110, right? Weren't they 110 win team?
Yeah, like
It was-
whatever.
Yeah, that
You-
was
you
one
look
of
at-
their 4.
You look at the players that are rolled through there. You know, Ichiro, Griffey, Edgar. I mean,
Tino
you had.
Martinez, Edgar Martinez.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Randy Johnson.
Randy
Yeah,
Johnson.
for
And
Randy
Alex
Johnson.
Rodriguez.
Jay Buhner, Alex Cora was there for a while. I mean, you look at the players that have rolled through there and go, how have they not won more games and been in the playoffs more times?
Yeah.
John Olerud.
Joey
I used to
Cole.
love Olerud. I used to
I
love
did too. I
Olerud.
loved Olerud.
A-Rod,
So
in case
Yeah.
we forgot about him.
Right? Goodness. Yeah, man.
Yikes.
I don't know. So,
I-
all right.
My favorite Mariner of all time is still Jamie Moyer.
He's probably still pitching
Old
somewhere.
man Moyer.
He probably is, man.
No,
That guy,
there's no doubt in my mind.
his
no doubt in my
fastball
mind.
couldn't break a pane of glass, but he got people out.
Mine couldn't either, but I couldn't get people out. So that's the difference between me and him. All right,
so
your 30th. Harrison.
I say let's go 30s because the last teams are interesting. So I went with the Pirates for the same reason Sean outlined. That team is, if that team left the league, I don't think anybody would notice.
No.
And it's a shame. It's such a great sports town. So like it's
is.
such a shame that they get done that way. You know,
And it's a great
beautiful
ballpark.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, you think about how crazy those Steelers fans are and Penguins fans. Like
Oh.
when their teams are good, like they clearly show out for them. Like it's not like it's such a shame.
Yeah, that team's an embarrassment.
Yeah.
What
Number
do you got for 29, Nick?
29, I got the Milwaukee Brewers. So all-time wins,
Interesting.
3,915. They only have 2 primary Hall of Famers, Paul Molitor and Robert Yount.
Yep.
They have no World Series titles either. They've only been there once and 8 playoff appearances. And they're
Can I pick the Pirates twice? Could Pirates
Yeah.
be 29 for me?
That's fine. So yeah, Brewers 29 for me.
Yeah, Brewers.
Interesting.
That's a good one. I the historical aspect is I feel like we're going to have not massively different, you know.
Yeah.
But for instance, like I wouldn't have the Brewers in my bottom 4, because I look at them now and it's like that's a team like to Harrison's
Right,
point,
they're up
I would
there.
love to
Right.
have the Brewers.
Mhm.
Like that's a fun city. The fans show out for them. It's a good
Yeah.
roster, young kids. Like
Yep.
that's a team I would definitely enjoy. to
But
watch.
they still
you
haven't
look at it
proven they can win. That's the
No.
kicker with Milwaukee. Like they've had good teams there, even in the past, and even
Yeah.
when Robin Yount was playing, they had good teams, and they just
Right.
couldn't get there. They couldn't get over the hump.
True.
So I mean, that's
True.
part of the legacy piece that's going to be different between my list and your guys' list. But,
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Fair.
me, it's 29. I had Kansas City. But again, I look at it now, and it's like it's a team that just they had that the one year that they beat the Mets, and it's not that I'm bitter about it, but the one year that they beat the Mets, right? And that was a team like that was the thing about them, right? It's like, oh, this offense, they'll just they don't strike out, they put the ball in play, they make you play defense. But again, you look at that ownership group, and it's just like they didn't keep any of those guys. They win a World Series, and then they're gone. And
Yeah,
it's just like
see ya.
now it's just like, oh well, we did what we spent 25 years doing. We drafted and we got the coaching in place, and we got the minor league guys in place, and we built them up, and we made them Royals players, and then they win a World Series, and then it's like, all right, we're just gonna rip it down and start it all over again, I guess.
They're the Florida
You know, and
Marlins.
it's
Bring
like-
them all in for a year, kick them out.
Yep.
Bring them all
Right,
in,
yeah.
win, kick them out. Yeah.
And it's so that was it was more of I'll admit it was the Royals for me was a frustration pick because I like them, and I think when that team is good, that American League Central is like a fun division because it's like 4 teams that just battle it out, and like those are fun races to watch, but like they frustrate me because they'll do it one time in 25 years and then they just go back into the dumpster again.
That division is terrible right now. So bad.
So bad.
I mean, it's there
So
for the
bad.
taking. It's
Oh,
there
yeah.
for the taking.
Goodness. Like, I'd give the Central to one of the ALS teams for Christ's sakes, because nobody in the Central deserves it.
no, that's
Like,
bad.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. So 29 for me was also the Royals for a lot of the same reasons.
Oh,
They
look at this 2 for 2.
The funny thing is I like the market. I mean, you think of like Chiefs fans, they're nuts. Like these fans when they were winning were
Oh,
all
yeah.
about the Royals. I like the ballpark. You know, who doesn't like hitting a home run into the friggin' fountains? You know, good market. They've got a good farm system. They just tease you every year, like all these young guys, and oh, look at this team. And then when they finally like get good, it's like, we're done now. We're gonna let them all go, and start and reset. And you know, they went to the World Series and lost. They went back and won, and then they just dismantled what was potentially a good team that could have been a good team for years. And honestly, it's one of those
such
teams.
young, good core players.
Yeah, because they wanted to be one of those teams that runs like no payroll, puts the revenue sharing in their pocket, and gives the finger to their fans. So that's an organization that's a hot dumpster fire that I would not want to be the owner of the Royals. I just wouldn't. You're cleaning up too much old baggage there.
Yeah. All right. 28. Who wants to stat?
I'll go because
Go ahead,
I'll see. Maybe Sean will take this one too. But 28 for me was the Tigers.
Thank God I didn't have the Tigers.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I had the Tigers, and it's hard because Detroit's a great sports city. It can be. That's a really nice ballpark.
Especially the Lions.
Well, it's a good sports city when teams are good. Remember, that used to be Hockey Town and all this stuff.
Right.
But
absolutely.
you know, when the Pistons were good, I mean, the problem is in Detroit is that you've never had like more than one team good at a time. Like it's brutal. And that fan base, I think, is so disenfranchised with the organizations it has. They're good fans. They want a winner. The Tigers are the same way. They put them together. They dismantle it. You know, you look at the names that have walked through that place and left after a few years, and it'll blow your mind what kind of team they could have built if they hung on to some of them. But that's an organization going nowhere fast. Signing Erod's nice. He doesn't fix your problems. They got guys on that major league roster that have no business being there. They've got nobody behind them in the farm system, you know. And I think the owner's too busy slinging Caesar's pizza to care. So I just think that's another organization that's lost its way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should you, Sean? 28.
Washington.
Oh,
I know they got the one World Series win. Oh. And I know they were the Expos and all that, but I look at them
Senators.
like I don't look at them like I don't look at that team and think like, oh, like Vlad Guerrero and you know, like that's not Pedro Martinez. Like that's not, and I know it's the same, but in my head it's not. Like they're the Nationals. And they moved to DC and they were terrible, and they were picking top of every draft with the Pirates. I mean, they're up there with Pittsburgh at the top of every draft for what seemed like 100 years, and they're getting the next young stud. They're the Strasburg, and Strasburg, I mean, worked out. He was a good pitcher, but like every year, it's like they got the guy. Oh, Washington's gonna get him. Washington gets him, and they either bring him up too soon and he's nothing, or they bring him up at the right time and then shut him down for no reason whatsoever. And that there almost seemed to be no direction with the way they were going, other than we're just going to get a bunch of really good young players. But like, we don't have a direction for the franchise. We don't, we have no idea really how we fit in with Major League Baseball. We're just going to get a bunch of young studs, hopefully get people into our brand new ballpark that cost $1 trillion that we have to somehow pay off. And, you know, that was that. And they had caught lightning in a bottle. They had that really good team that won the title. And now look where they are again. You know, I mean, it didn't take long. And now they're back in the basement. So that's a team that I just, you know, I like the uniforms, but that's about it. Washington doesn't do it for me.
So I might get some backlash on this one, but my 28th team is the Tampa Bay Rays. So it's based on, like I said, legacy, right? They just haven't had the years to build a legacy yet. They have no Hall of Famers. They're under 2,000 career wins as a franchise. They've been to 2 World Series. They've lost both. And, I mean, 7 playoff appearances is nothing to sneeze at, but I just weighed out the number of wins, the no Hall of Famers, and being to 2 World Series and losing, like, kind of outweighed the amount of playoff appearances you had because, you know, you're losing before you're even getting to the World Series. And then when you got to the World Series, you lost. So, I mean, that's just, I just don't think they've had enough years yet for me to move them up on the list legacy-wise.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, that's probably the team that's made the most out of the nothing they have.
Absolutely.
But it's, I mean, no. I mean, the Rays will be on my list next week for all the success they've had. It's not a great organization.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
20,
Yeah, I mean,
27.
I agree with
Oh,
everything. I agree with everything you said about the Rays, except the one thing I will say that I want not to give it away. They are on my list this week. They're just not at that number. They went to the World Series. What was it 2008 when they beat the Sox? Then they lost
Yep.
to the Phillies, right? You could go to the gate and buy a ticket, like to a
Oh,
World
it's
Series
awful.
game.
Yeah, it's
Like they,
brutal.
how do you not sell out? But it's like that's the market. It's terrible. It's
Yeah.
absolutely terrible. And I will say, for all the recent success that the Rays have had, I still don't think they're a great organization.
No.
Like I think they do really well for what they have. And and I think a guy like Kevin Cash, I don't love Kevin Cash, but I think he deserves a lot of credit because like he does do, I know, but yeah, go ahead. Anyways, that was my 2 cents on the Rays. But
Well,
No,
it's funny.
I agree.
Before we went on, Nick and I were talking about the Rays, and I looked at my list, and I'm like, they're going to be on my list for next week, and like I want to like them more, given what they've done. I just can't. It's not. You just can't like them more. It's a terrible organization that's had nothing but lemons. They've made lemonade, and great for them. But I would want nothing to do with that organization, and they're never going to attract players there. They're just going to keep burning through the young talent they create.
Well, then look at the Carl Crawford deal. Like
Ugh.
their first big free agent to come out of Tampa, and he was an absolute dud when he got to even past the Red Sox when we shipped him out to LA. Like, dude, terrible.
that's a hard thing.
He left Tampa and his career was over.
Tampa Bay, though. But that's a hard thing to blame on Tampa Bay. Like Carl Crawford was just like, it was just unfortunate that the first big name to come out of Tampa Bay was a guy that like just mentally and emotionally just wasn't into it. Like he literally all he cared, and he pretty much might as well have just said it. The only thing I care about is making money.
Yeah.
Like he didn't care.
Yeah.
Like he didn't love baseball. So like that's a hard, like it's not Tampa's fault.
Right.
No, but I think it's also it goes to the pedigree of the player. I mean, Blake Snell went to San Diego this year and struggled and then got hurt. And I do think that it's the pedigree of the player the Rays create. They bring you in cheap. They burn through you as much as they can till you hit a point you can make some money, and they discard you. And you're used to playing in front of nobody in games that don't matter to anybody, and nobody cares about you. And I think you get to a market like Boston, and the guy like Carl Crawford probably went, oh my God, like who are all these people and why do they care? Like we used to get.
You're probably right.
We were going to the World Series and 10,000 people came to our games. Like this is, I think it's the pressure too of going into a market where baseball matters.
Yeah.
Fair.
All right, 27.
That's bad. 27. I guess back. It's your turn to start, Nick.
All right, I guess I'll go. I went with the Rockies. So 2,000 wins. 2,060 wins. Only Hall of Famer Larry Walker just got in this year. Like stud, absolute stud. One World Series, but 0 for 1 because maybe the Sox beat them. I don't remember. Yeah. But and then they do have 5 playoff appearances, but again, like haven't been around a long time. What was it? 96 was it? 7? It was after the strike, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So
it was the same year the Rays came in, wasn't it?
Yeah, I want to say it's 97.
No,
wasn't it?
The Rockies came in with maybe it was the Rays, and then the Diamondbacks
Rockies were 93.
93. So
okay,
before.
So they were right before.
Right. The Rockies came in with the Marlins, right? The Rockies came in with the Marlins, and then the Rays came in with the Diamondbacks.
Yes, that's right.
So that's how it was. Yeah, so Rockies are, and they've had some great players there over the years, but just, again, can't win, too low. Todd Helton, even now, Charlie Blackmon, no slouch. Guy's ridiculous.
I love Charlie
Nolan Arenado. They just can't win. Tough
what about
division, but still.
What about the days of Hampton hitting bombs in Coors Field as a pitcher?
Mike Hampton, that's right, man. Billy Swift, the main connection, was the first pitcher to start at Coors Field.
That's cool.
Oh, is that right?
That is correct.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right. So 27 for who?
Sean.
I had the Rockies too, Nick.
Huh.
Nice.
Lining up there. For similar reasons. You can say some nice things about the Rockies, right? Like they did go to that World Series. But to me, and I know they were a team that came in the 90s, so it's like they don't have the history. But for quite a while in that National League West, like that was not murder's row division. Like it's not like they came into the American League East. Like it wouldn't have taken you very long. Like if you did it the right way and you signed and drafted and developed the right players at the right time. Now I know a lot of that's, you got to be at the right place. So it's, but they didn't have to be a doormat for as long as they were a doormat for. Like I just think that for so long, like the way that organization and the team was built was just like, we don't know what's happening. Like we don't know. Like I don't even, I should look right through real quick here at the history, the managerial history of Colorado. Like have they had like, I know Bud Black, but if they had like great managers?
No.
Like go out and get yourself, like start there, right? Yep. Like go out and get yourself a great bench boss, and then let's go from there.
It also doesn't help that you're in probably the best hitters park in the major leagues. I mean, it's, I know it's an excuse. I get it, but
overblown bullshit.
You could put that fence at 500 feet, and people are still going to hit bombs out of there.
Nick, it's not like you don't get to hit in your home park. Like you play half your games there.
I understand. Yeah, I get it.
So fine. So I'll give you that like fine. Like I can understand why they don't have Cy Young candidates. Fine. Like I will capitulate that. Like you're not going to go to Colorado and win a Cy Young. Fine. But like you get to play offense in the same field too.
Yeah.
Like, you build your roster, and we talk about Fenway has this big, tell me the Red Sox for decades and decades haven't tailored their roster to be good at home. Like that's what everyone talks about. Oh, go get this guy. He'd be great with the wall. Well, like why doesn't Colorado do the same thing? Tailor your roster, tailor your team to dominate at Coors Field. Right. You should dominate. Teams shouldn't want to go in there because we're going to lose 11-10 every game. Right. Like teams should hate that. Yeah, and if you don't take advantage of it, then like you're just a schmuck. That's on you.
I agree.
Yeah, if your pitching staff has a 10 ERA but you win 100 games, does anybody care? No, because it's what works for your team.
Not only would I say no one cares, Harrison, I would applaud the hell out of him for
doing Agreed.
I would say your strength and the players you want and you develop players the way you want to develop them. Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, why have the Yankees always gone after left-handed fly ball hitters? Because that's what the ballpark tells you need.
That's
it's silly.
Like, and no one complains about that. Like no one's like, oh, I don't want to pitch for the Yankees because it's a short right porch. But everyone says they don't want to go to Colorado because it's high altitude. Like it's such an excuse. It's bullshit.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. All right. So 27 for me. 27 for me was the Athletics.
Ooh.
And I know this is going to hurt you, Nick. I hate the A's, and so here's why.
The A's.
The A's are basically the showcase for Major League Baseball. They develop all these young players, show them off, and then let them go. Look, I mean, a guy like Chapman, he's gone in a couple of years. I mean, you go down the list, and if you could take Billy Beane's ability to find young talent and gave him a checkbook that had actual money in it to build a team around it, they would be devastating. But they're that team that'll like throw a 97 win season in and then win 82 games the next year. And then they'll be like 88 wins. And then it's like, 75 wins. And it's the ballpark is awful. The market is good, but they're the redheaded stepchild to the Giants, the Angels, the Dodgers. Like they're surrounded by behemoths. Yeah. And all they do is develop young talent, show the world how good they are, and then let them walk away for nothing. I mean, hell, they let their manager walk. I mean, the organization is so dysfunctional, it's not even funny.
I still can't believe that. I still can't believe they just let him go for nothing.
They are the epitome of dysfunctional.
I have a hot Billy Beane take for you, Harrison.
Oh, I like it. Go.
I'm not entirely. You just said that if you gave him a checkbook that has actually money, that he'd be great. I'm not entirely sure I believe that, because if it's to believe that the Red Sox offered him, he turned down a team with money in the checkbook that was willing to spend.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I want to stay where I am. Like, and if he doesn't have the confidence in himself to go to Boston and build a title, like maybe he's not as good as everyone says he is. Like, I think he does fine in Oakland.
Yeah, he's fine.
He had a movie made after him. Of course he's good.
I mean, great
Oh
movie.
God.
I mean, it's
When you have
but-
Jonah Hill as an assistant, like how can you go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, fair.
No
Fair.
comment.
Look, I like him. I don't love him. I think that he is perfect for what the Oakland ownership needs and what the Oakland ownership wants. They want somebody to, how did you put it earlier in the show, Harrison? He gets money out of a penny or something like that, right? Like that's what they want. They need that. They need every 50 cents they spend to produce a dollar's value. And he does a good job of identifying those guys, especially when they're young, developing them. And then he knows that he's not going to be able to keep them. And it sucks because, like, it does make them the minor league for every other team in baseball.
Yeah.
But I put them higher up because, like, they're really good at that. And it's frustrating that they will have – it's frustrating that they'll have, like, 95, 96 wins one time, and then they're back to, like, the mid-80s, and then they'll go make a run. And, like, that does make it frustrating. But, like, that team has every excuse to be the Colorado Rockies or to be like, you know, the Baltimore Orioles. I almost said Baltimore Ravens.
They have
to
not
be
to
the
jump
Orioles.
ahead,
Like
they have 29 playoff appearances as a franchise.
Oh yeah.
That's it's no slouch.
No.
But
they're that team that goes to the playoffs and you're like, oh, this is the year, and then they get knocked out in like 3 games in the first round. You're like, well, there's the A's again, waiting for the 3-run home run. You know, I hate that organization. I feel like that organization's like one step away from being the Pirates, where maybe you dangle a carrot a little more often to the fan base, but ultimately that organization is not playing to win; they're playing to exist. And if they win away tomorrow, I don't think baseball's harmed by it.
Well, so we got 2 franchises out of the league. That's cool. All right, so moving on, we got number 26. I have the Padres at 26. Kind of hurts for me to say that.
I say that's got to sting, Nick.
It hurts a little bit, but again, only 3,806 wins as a franchise.
Yep.
Only produced Tony Gwynn, Trevor Hoffman, and Dave Winfield. And arguably, Dave Winfield probably shouldn't have even had the cap as a San Diego Padre, but he was pretty hostile in New York when he was there, so that's why he chose the Padres. Anyways, they've been to 2 World Series, lost both, and have only had 6 playoff appearances in their franchise history. So that was why they were ranked where I put them.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I get that one. I get that one.
Yeah. All right. So 26 for me was the Reds. And I know they had. I know it's gonna hurt. I know it's gonna hurt you, Nick, but because they were the big red machine and they were so good, but they've been completely irrelevant for what 25, 30 years now. I mean, that organization, new ballpark, still suck in what should be a good market, but I think that's a fan base that's so tired of losing they've given up on them. They've developed some good young players. I mean, India today, but but at the same time, like they've never had more than one solid player in their lineup for a long time. So I just, they're another team that's fallen into that kind of world of irrelevancy. And I want to like them. I like the ballpark. I like the market. I like the history, the prestige of the team. It's another team to me that is just existing and not playing to win.
And that's the thing is like every year they look at the roster and they're like Luis Castillo, Joey Votto, Nick Castellanos. Oh, yeah. They go break down the roster and like this team should be good. In the NL Central, where it's not really that competitive. You got the Pirates, you got the Cubs, you got the Brewers are the top team, obviously, but like they should be able to compete. And like you said, they're just kind of every year.
Yeah. I'll give you that one. That's a good one. And I had 26 for me was Tampa. And I think that while they do get credit for what they've done the past, let's say 8-10 years, the contender, if you will, that they've built, and they certainly have had players that have played well, moved on, and then they bring new guys in to do well. And, I think Cash is the right guy for them. I don't like him, but he fits Tampa Bay. But they just, for too long, I mean, like we're all Red Sox fans, like for too long, that was a just disgusting organization.
Oh, so bad.
It would just be like we didn't, my family never had like Red Sox season tickets. So like to go to a Red Sox game once or twice a year was like always a blast.
Oh, yeah.
Like my brothers and I would be like, why do I have to see Tampa? Like, I don't want to watch
Yeah,
Tampa.
it's
Like,
the
he's
only
not
ticket
good.
available.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like I don't want to watch Tampa Bay. Like, can't wait. It was either like Tampa Bay or the Royals. Like that's. I'm like, can
Yep.
I see a Yankee game?
Nope.
Yeah, it's just it was for too long. For too long, the team was just. And I'll tell you, I do have a hatred, and I should admit, I will always have a hair across my ass for Tampa Bay because I hate Joe Madden more than I could describe in words. I absolutely despise Joe Madden. And I know he did well with them and he brought them
Yep.
there in '08 and all this. I get that. I just think that he is the most self-righteous. And he might be a great guy. I don't know. But like the way he comes across, I can't stand him.
He's
Cannot
supposed to be
stand
the
him.
savior of the Angels, and it's
Oh,
not
he is
happening.
so smug and arrogant. It's awful. It's so bad.
I will always hold that against Tampa Bay.
Yep.
Because if it wasn't for Tampa Bay, that guy would have been a career bench coach. A career bench coach. And no one would know his name. No one would know his name, and I would be totally fine with it. Except Tampa Bay, he makes his name in Tampa Bay, and now it's just they will always, I will hate them always for that.
Yeah. All right.
Nice. Had some decent variety in there. That was good.
Yeah, that was. I like that. That's gonna be
That was
fun.
good.
All right. So
Awesome.
moving on to rounding third, we threw the question out there: what are the best uniforms of all time? We did get some viewers' answers from Nick. He said the New York Yankees. I mean, the New York Yankees isn't
Classic.
necessarily the best for me, but it is.
Classic.
They have completely withstand time. Like they haven't changed in the 5,000 years the Yankees have been a baseball team.
Yep.
So I mean, can't really. And then what we were kind of talking about before we came on, I think, was the Boston Strong jerseys was brought up by Doug and Steve, and they both liked them. They said they liked them better in person than they did on TV, but they liked them. And I was like we said, I like the color scheme of the hat. I didn't necessarily like the blue on the yellow. I thought it was just way too much.
Yep.
And like I said before, too, is like with these City Connect jerseys, Nike should have donated money to a charity. They should have been charitable instead of just lining their pockets with money. I think they completely dropped the ball on that and missed the whole point. I think a lot more people would have gotten behind them.
Right.
And I probably would have enjoyed their jerseys more if there was some other meaning behind them instead of just making Nike extreme amount.
And back to Sean's point earlier in the show is, here's another opportunity MLB had to connect with a younger audience, the millennials and younger, by running a big charitable thing behind the uniforms. And what did they do? Nothing. Right. They rolled them out, said, "Aren't we awesome?" and then let Nike take all the profit and did nothing to actually enhance the game. They just, another empty attempt to create excitement.
Yeah, brutal. Yeah, Doug said the South Side ones, the Chicago White Sox ones, he liked too. Those ones were pretty sweet. I do like those ones.
Yeah, agreed.
The black with the white pinstripes was pretty sick.
Yeah.
But that was really out of who else did them? The Dodgers. The Dodgers didn't even look different.
No.
Was it like a Los Dodgers or something they put on them? Like,
the Giants had them too, and it's like it incorporated the Golden Gate Bridge, which was like fine, but like there wasn't any of the city ones that jumped out like, oh, I love those ones.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll start with my uniforms, I guess. So I picked 3. Mm-hmm. I picked the Oakland Kelly green with the yellow lettering. I just love the looks of them. They're pretty simple.
On the white pants, right?
On top of the white pants. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I really like them. The Mariners teal jerseys, really liked, like the Griffey back in the 90s. Love that one.
The Lupinellas.
Yep, the Lupinellas, definitely. But I think my favorite one is the old school Phillies baby blue with the maroon.
Baby blues.
The baby blues, any team really, but the baby blues with maroon, like the one Bryce Harper. Do you have that picture? The one Bryce Harper uniform?
I'm just getting it up right now.
That it's just.
Dude, Bryce Harper makes every uniform look hot though.
Whoa.
No.
Yes,
but
it does.
Yeah, this uniform is just. I think it's.
I agree.
It's just amazing. Yep. And then I did have a runner-up, I know fourth, but the Marlins orange jersey I really liked for a short time there when they had it a few years ago.
Those were cool.
Oh,
Yeah, those are cool.
really?
Yeah, the orange Marlins, I really liked them. But yeah, there's a Griffey teal. So those are my three.
Nice. All right. So my three were I always loved the sleeveless Mariners jerseys. I just thought that was such a cool look when they went to the sleeveless jerseys and they had the undershirts that matched. A, because I thought it looked cool, but B, because our high school team, we had the sleeveless jerseys. There's not an easier jersey to play in when your arms aren't restricted by those heavyweight jerseys. I just thought they were nice looking and easy to use, easy to play in. I've always loved the White Sox, the black with the white and the stripes. I just think that uniform looks awesome. To go with that reverse and actually go the dark. And then lastly, as a homer, I've always loved the classic Red Sox jersey.
Yeah.
And what I like about the Red Sox jersey is the home jersey is the white. It says Red Sox, no name on the back. Road jersey is Boston with the name on the back. It's timeless. It's classic. It's clean. And it's not, these silly logos or crazy designs. And I like how they can flex in the red and the blue just to kind of add some color to it. But I've always loved just the classic styling.
I think the alternates are fire. Like I wish they're wore
cool.
those. I wish they wore those 100% of the time. Like I could go away with a white and gray. Absolutely.
the Reds are
No
nice.
way.
Really? Dude, I love those navy blue aways, dude. I could wear those all day.
We talk about the Yankees being standing the test of time, right? And I know the Sox have changed their jerseys and the logo, minor changes here and there.
Yeah.
But I think like the Red Sox, like that red B on the blue hat is as classic as you can.
Oh, for sure.
It's 1A, 1B with the Yankees, right?
Yep.
And like for me, it's the Red Sox. We talk top three uniforms. My number one is the white on white home Red Sox uniforms.
Love it.
Red Sox, white bottoms, white tops, classic blue. Like that's just it. Like that's the hat. Like that's the
homers.
Like,
both of you homers.
That's my favorite one. My second favorite one is the Road Montreal Expos. The gray on gray. It said Montreal in cursive across the front.
Mm-hmm.
Those things were
those were good.
Those were sweet uniforms. And I'm a sucker for pinstripes, but Cubs home uniforms I really like. The blue, the white with the really thin blue. Mm-hmm. And that's what we talk about classic. Not necessarily the C on the hat, which is, but the Cubs logo, like right on the
Yes.
Like that's just a great jersey. Like that. And I know I didn't go as exotic. I went more classic, but like that Cubs home pinstripes, C on the chest, give it to me every time. Like that's such a great uniform.
The Cubs were my fourth. I had to bump them to make room. But that is another timeless jersey.
How come no one brought up those?
As good as it gets.
No one brought up those Astros '80s jerseys, like the orange, like stripes, like.
I almost did. I almost did.
Goodness gracious!
But I'll tell you, the only reason why I like them is, I mean, they were before my time. But the only reason why I like them is because every time I picture them, I picture like a 60-year-old Nolan Ryan sweating his ball back off, and it's like that's hilarious.
I do think one jersey or one uniform combo that looks really good is the D-backs, like the colors and the variation. I think those are. I think now is really nice, but even when you go back to the days of like Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling, they always had that kind of variety, that color variety. They are always eye-catching. It's too bad nobody sees them because they play on the West Coast and they stink, but they've got a nice jersey too, a nice uniform.
Yeah.
The Rockies alternate all purple with the black lettering.
Yeah,
is pretty sharp too. Just because like
it's a little too much purple for me, but
the thing is, like every team in the major leagues is either red or blue. Like I like the teams that are different colors, like colors you don't see every day.
Yeah,
right. No, I'll give you that. That's fair.
Yeah.
So whether it's purple or not, I don't care if they're hot pink.
And I'm telling you, I'm a sucker for gray road uniforms that have the cursive across, like the gray, like the Baltimore's roads. Mm-hmm. I love Baltimore's road uniforms.
Yeah,
I don't know why. There's just something about like the gray with the. I just love it. I love it.
It's like,
do you like the realistic Oriole or the cartoon Oriole?
You know what? When they went back to so there was the cartoon Oriole, and then they went to the Melvin Moore realistic Oriole, and then they went back. When they went back, like for art recently, at first I was like, oh, I don't know if I like it, but it didn't take very long. I think I like it more.
Oh, yeah.
Like
do
I think
too,
I prefer the
100%.
cartoon one.
Absolutely.
I didn't
agree.
at first, but I think I do now.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yep. It grows on you. I've always been more of a traditional kind of a purist, and I like all the throwback stuff. But
Oh,
that
and
that was a freshening up that was probably good.
oh, and same with Toronto.
Mm.
Though, do you remember when Roy Halladay was there? They had like those retro
The all blue.
Those things sucked. Those sucked. I'm so
Oh,
glad
it's
they
like
went
the
back
old
to the
Royals
ones they have now.
uniforms, the freaking powder blue, everything.
Oh.
Oh. I did like that J symbol though. They had the J with like the blue J sticking out of the back of the
You
J.
did?
Yeah.
I like that.
I like that.
I love the one they have now. Don't get me wrong. The one they have now is what I think every time I think of Blue Jays. But I just like that little change for a little bit. But
fair enough.
I like change sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. All right. So speaking of change, we're going to move on to our last segment, which is heading home, which is our hot topics, free agent rumors, and all of that stuff. Jonathan India, Randy Arozarena were named Rookie of the Years tonight. No
Rookies
surprise. Rookie. What did I say? Rookie of the Years.
You said Rookie of the Years. I was just busting your balls. Rookies of the Year.
Same thing. Rookie
Same
of
thing.
the Years. Rookies of the Years. Whatever.
All the above.
English is hard too. Math and English.
They were the best rookies. Moving on.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. So we also got word today that Eduardo Rodriguez signed with the Tigers. Is that where we thought he was going to go?
No.
Yeah, I no. I didn't think. I thought I thought it was all not all posturing, but I thought it was when it was all said and done, he was coming back. Like I just think the Sox would find a way. Not that like we needed him. I love him. Like I think the Sox can absorb it. Like if the Sox have to move on, which they do from Erod, like they can move on from Erod. Like it's not like he was. But I don't know. There was just something about like I don't know. We got it. It was a great way we got him. You know, like give Andrew Miller to Baltimore, and they don't do anything with him. We get Erod in return. We end up getting Andrew Miller back anyways. It's fucking sweet, right? Like it was just like, and he pitched well for us, and he was a guy that like was kind of under the radar, but like people thought he was really good, but like he didn't get enough credit, I don't think, for how good and consistent for the most part he really was.
Yeah.
And I just thought he'd come back. Like I thought it would be like test the waters, figure out what you're worth, come back to us, talk to us, we'll figure it out. And then they just didn't. I definitely didn't think Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I definitely didn't think Detroit of all teams.
No.
But again, who wouldn't want to pitch in that ballpark? Dude, I could go pitch in that ballpark right now.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
What's interesting too is you look at the guy won 19 games in 2019. You thought he was on his way to becoming the ace of the staff. 2020 he gets COVID, gets shut down the whole year. Comes back this year, he's up, he's down. The ERA's way up, the velocity's down. He just looks like he lost a season. I mean, I see the Red Sox, not wanting to pay him, but I actually think he went cheap. A left-handed starter that can win you 15 plus games gets $15 million a season. Like I feel like he went cheap. I feel like he signed early and jumped the gun before his market even showed up. And I think he could have made more.
Do you think there's collusion, kind of like the NBA? Do you think the players might know where other players are going to go before they sign? Like, I mean, I don't have any proof of this. It's just a question because we've heard rumors that Verlander and Scherzer both want to go back to Detroit and reunite, possibly. We've heard they want to sign Correa there. So if all of these guys have been talking, and who knows, right? I mean, I'm not saying that it happened, but it's possible.
No, but if Erod was Verlander or Scherzer, I might believe that because then he's going to sign like, hey guys, come, let's do this and call and get those guys to come. I don't think Erod's the first domino to fall to make that happen. I think he's a nice pickup.
Fair enough.
He'll be their number 2 starter if they go get somebody else. He might be their ace if they don't.
Casey Mize.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Yeah. But I don't see him being the domino that creates that So
Yeah.
I
No,
feel like
maybe not,
he
but
signed early. He left money on the table, and other than Detroit being a great ballpark to pitch in, I don't understand the move for him.
to play along with Nick, Casey Meyer's a young kid that it's shown some potential. I mean, this kid's a good young arm, and he's learning how to pitch. Like when you watch him, it's like, oh, he's figuring out like how to pitch, not just throw,
Yep.
right? Like he's learning how to pitch. Maybe Erod's not that like ace that goes and brings everyone else with him, but that's a really good number 2 now. Like Casey
Sure.
Mize, Erod probably your second. Let's say Verlander does go back. Well, now if I'm Scherzer, I'm going, well, I'm definitely going back because now your fourth pitcher is Erod.
Right.
Erod's your fourth starter. I mean, that's disgusting.
Right.
You know, and not to mention, like they do have some other young arms already on staff
They
right
do.
now that are learning how to pitch again, and they're coming up into their own. Like that is a dangerous staff. If even one, let alone both of those guys, go back to Detroit, like that is dangerous.
Yeah.
So I think it's a smart if that's the case to play along, Nick. Like if there's, and I don't know if the collusion will be the right word, but if there's understanding, hey, like there's a pretty good sense that Verlander's going to go back, or there's a pretty good sense that Max is going to end up back in Detroit. Like to me, super smart move for Erod to tell his agent, like, hey, if Detroit, as long as they meet the minimum of 5 years and what, 12 million, let's say, minimum of that, I'll take it. And he ends
That's
up
what I'm
getting,
saying.
15
Like that's the
so,
only thing that makes sense to me of why he would take less money. You know,
at least
and
so early.
Right.
So
and like
early.
the early rumors was he was going to go to the Angels with Robbie Ray.
Well, that's right.
But
right.
I mean, dude, I don't know if you could pay me enough to go to the Angels right now either. Like they're dumpster fire out there too. Like with all the talent that they have on offense that's coming up with all the young guys they have David Fletcher, they have Jared Walsh, Max Stassi, like all those guys coming up. Like that offense is gonna put up some numbers this year.
They will.
But they just don't have the pitching. They don't have pitching. And if Erod goes, then you got Dylan Bundy following him up. You got like Shohei once every 15 days. Like it's just.
But that's why, like,
situation.
I'm with you. Like, I wouldn't want to go there too because then, like, yeah, you might get 20 million, 19, 20 million a year, but like now, like, you have that added pressure of okay, yeah, you're the ace, but not only are you the ace, you're the guy that has to win because every 5 days, like, we're on a 4-game losing streak. Right? Like you now have to stop the bleeding every single outing.
Yeah.
Like fuck that. Like you couldn't pay me enough to do that.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
If all that stuff happens, then his contract makes sense. If none of it happens, then I have no idea what the hell he's doing.
Fair. I'll give you
100%.
that. I'll give you that for sure.
So the GM Les Mets met with Freddie Freeman's reps today. So my question is if Freddie Freeman ends up signing with the Mets, what the hell do they do with Pete Alonso? I mean, do they why? First of all, why are you even meeting with Freddie Freeman when you got Alonso there, unless you're looking to deal him?
Right. Well, I mean, it's right. I mean that's the only way to read into this, right?
Yeah.
Unless
the DH is coming in this new agreement.
Right.
I mean, if the DH is coming, then you definitely DH Alonso and you put Freeman at first.
Right. And again, we talk like if they know that that's, coming down the pike, maybe. I mean, because that would be the move. I mean, like you said, I mean, if the DH is coming, that's the move. Pete's your DH, Freddie's at first. Let's go.
Yep.
Obviously, you need some more pieces, but let's go ahead. But if there's no DH, Pete's gone.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, right?
No, I love Freddie Freeman, but are you really going to sign Freddie Freeman and replace Pete Alonso with Freddie Freeman right now? Like,
but Pete Alonso he's the epitome of a long ball or a K. Like
sure.
I mean, he belongs in that Yankee lineup. I mean, the Mets lineup. I meant Mets. Yeah. 200 Ks, 52 bombs,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
behind Stanton behind Baez and.
Well, yeah. I mean, but keep in mind. So Pete Alonso this year, 152 games played, hit 262, struck out 127 times, so not quite as bad.
No.
37 home runs, 94 RBIs. I mean, are you really going to trade him out for Freddie Freeman, who's only going to be there for a couple of years?
Right.
Yeah.
And we're talking, and how many RBIs you said? 97, right? So we
Yeah,
had just under
94.
100 RBIs?
37 and 94.
37 and 94. Okay. For a team that really couldn't get guys on in front of them, it was a dumpster fire of an organization, a manager that I don't think. Yo, did you see, by the way?
Yeah, third base coach of the
Luis
Yankees.
Rojas? Yeah, the Yankees swiped him out to be the third base coach. I mean, a manager that I don't think really knew what he was doing when it came to managing a baseball team.
Well, that's because Beltran came in and was like, "Hi, I'm the manager." No, I'm not.
That was so unfair to him. That was so unfair to him.
100%.
I mean, that guy deserves to be a manager someday, and he'll never get it now. He'll never get that.
It's terrible.
Meanwhile, Cora and Hinch are on their second jobs after the whole fiasco. Beltran's there, holding the wet paper bag like that. That wasn't right.
No.
Yeah, no.
But yeah. You guys got anything else for Hot Stove? For anything else?
I don't think so.
I'm really curious how this market materializes over the next couple of weeks. I know this is usually the quiet part of the season. I do think some of these teams like the Tigers will strike, and we'll see some deals signed that make no sense to us at the time. But I think we're going to have a really long winter with nothing happening until they get this whole work stoppage thing figured out.
Yeah, that December 1st, you said December 1st cutoff. Like, it's
Yeah,
going to be
December 1.
interesting to see who signs before or who waits. Because if they wait and this lockout happens, they might not be signing guys until February.
Yeah, that's assuming, depending on when they come back, they've got to basically restart. Right. And it's going to be a really interesting hot stove season.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Well, thanks for watching tonight, and just remember to go onto our page and like our stuff, share our page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will see you all next week.
Thank you.